Hello, people. We've done, Henning here, a band there. We've done a lot of, what? You don't work for this company, do you?
No, I don't.
You just like them. They're the distributor for the Fractal stuff, G66. So we've done a lot of videos for the FM3, the FM9, the VP4 effect thing. And if you put it all in a blender and mix it together, you get the axefxiii. It's got all the effects and then some. It's got all the button assignment possibilities of the floor ones, because
if you use a foot switch.
If you use a foot switch like the... No, not that one, Eric. The foot switch. Like the FC6 or the FC12. Guess what? The FC12 has double the switches. This thing is a freaking tank. Also has pedal inputs and switching inputs. Pretty crazy. So we've done all these videos. We talked about foot switch assignments and what you can do, because it isn't just a clicky. There's a holdy, flippy, roundy. Everything's possible. We've done that with the FM3. We looked at why the FM9 is bigger and better and why it can do more and what it can do more in a separate video. We looked at the VP4 effects thingy in front of an amp and in the effects loop. Now the big question is, with all that Fractal has to offer in their floor modelers and floor effects units, why would you still want the big one? Well, technically because bigger is better.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
That video is done. Thank you. And animals at the end. Why does the color change?
Yeah, you can adjust the color. That's actually the main reason I have the big one, because you can adjust the color and you
do
can
not
do
have
it
a big one.
In red.
I have a big one. Bernd has the editor open. We can edit the whole thing. It is the big kahuna. When I got this, I started to realize why the pros in the world, we're talking about the Rammsteins, the Metallicas, the Vais, whoever that guy is, and all these people choose to use this gear over, no offense to all the other stuff, but let's say a Helix or whatever. And I simply saw Fractal's tankiness. The stuff is built extremely well and very rugged, but also starting with the FM9, the multi-outs. The FM9 has 2 sets of XLR outs. What else has that? Nothing. Now, the axefxiii rack mount, it's 3 units, 3 rack units. It has the same, let's say, infuriating interface. No touchscreen. Again, Helix also doesn't have that.
Here, touchscreen would not actually make that much sense.
Not on a rack. Fully agreed. But all this in terms of operating it is the same on the 3, the 9. Is this clicky? It is clicky. And it only goes to layout. So pointless clicky. It would be nice if that could be assigned. How do I go back?
Yeah, but on the rack unit, nobody ever would program it. That's why you have the very, very great editor, which has comfort functions. You can do everything there. You can save presets.
But you have to be able to walk up to it and do adjustments backstage.
Actually, you can, and it's not that complicated. We showed that on the FM3, and I did a preset on the FM3, and it didn't take longer than 5 minutes.
But maybe let your roadie figure it out and handle that. But as on the FM9, you have direct volume outputs for the individual outs right on the front panel, which is great. And you can see here, there are 4 different individual volume outs, because this thing has 4 sets of stereo output.
Yes.
So if we look in the back now, Eric, thank you. Okay, so we are using output 1 that has a separate ground lift and also has a 1/4 inch out as well. So you could literally have 2 sets of stereo outs. It would just be the same thing assigned to output 1.
Actually 3, because the headphone out is also assigned to output 1.
So 3 sets of output 1 stereo.
Yeah.
Wow. Output 2 with a separate ground lift. 2 expression inputs. Then you can see the foot switch, which is connected with the XLR cable. I think that's just a standard XLR cable.
That's a standard XLR cable, and Fractal did that because they know XLR cables you can always find on any stage.
Makes a lot of sense.
Somewhere. And you can use them. You can even cascade them.
I don't like proprietary cables for foot switches, because if something breaks, then you're shit out of luck to get anything.
And what's worse than proprietary cables even is like a network cable, because that shit breaks.
but you can just buy many of them very cheaply.
That's right. That's right.
I don't mind network cables, especially if you get the ones that connect with
Neutrik.
the Neutrik, the XLR kind of one, because it's really, really... and if that breaks, get any standard network cable from a MediaMarkt, Best Buy, or whatever.
Yeah, it works.
So if you're on tour, replacing a network cable, not a problem.
Yeah, proprietary cable is a problem.
Replacing something proprietary, the...
like the Mesa Boogie foot switch cables,
the
terrible.
The Blackstar Series 1 is using a serial cable for the foot switch. Where are you going to get a serial cable nowadays? You won't.
I don't see that, like the printer. Like
Yeah.
Okay.
20-year-old technology. It makes no sense. Let's go back to the back, Eric. Thank you. Then we can see there's your instrument input, very straightforward. But then there's a stereo set of XLR combo inputs. So you could...
For input 2, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and you could put... Can you put mics in there?
No, it's no mic preamp there. It's a line signal.
Okay. Then we got an input 3 in stereo, input 4 in stereo, and that is, of course, all for hooking up other rack gear or other pedals or whatever, so that you could put them into your chain.
Yeah.
Right? Then we got output 3 and output 4, a 1/4 inch. The hum buster is a special cable that you can use if you're using like a 4 cable method and you're wiring this up in the back of your amp and you have any kind of hum problems, you can use the cable from Fractal, which will eliminate the hum in your 4 cable method. Then we've got the AES, which is of course super professional for a studio setup if your audio interface has an AES EBU
I used
input. And SPDIF, same thing, same idea. Go digital. Is an AES a better signal than an SPDIF?
It's the same signal.
It's the same
just
thing.
has a different header, and there are adapter cables. In RME audio interfaces, I know that they don't care. You can literally like solder yourself an adapter cable, and you can use SPDIF to IS EBU and vice versa.
Ah, okay. Yeah, but it's a good
On
idea.
RME, I don't know if it works on anything else.
It's a good idea if you have an audio interface that has those inputs to run it digitally, because that way you're not running through the ADDA again.
Yeah.
And then, of course, a big set of MIDI ins and outs. So you can see the back of this behemoth gives you everything you would ever want for a professional stage production. You can run a separate signal to the front of house, a separate signal with XLR to the monitor mixer in ear, and all of them can be configured differently with different IRs, with, run a recorder along your
You can literally do 4 different IRs for 4 different outputs, because you have 2 cap blocks, but you also have, when I go in my editor, I go to quick build, there you also have, let me see if I can find it, IR player 1 and IR player 2. They're not as flexible as the cap things, but they just load an IR. So you can do like really 4 different IRs on 4 different outputs.
If your front of house guy says, "Oh, that's the best cap for the venue," put that in the output 1. But you're like, "Well, but I would really like something that I can get out of the mix better with more mids." Then you give yourself a different one, right? You could, and if your drummer says, "Well, I'd rather have that sound," you know what? Give your monitor mixer a special IR just for the drummer. I mean, we're going crazy here, but you can.
You could also, what is pretty crazy, in the editor you see that you have an output EQ on all of the outputs, which you can put on and off. And you can also determine, you see here, I can do a parametric EQ on all of them. So I could do on all outputs.
That's crazy and too much is something we've said a lot today.
Yeah.
Because but again, this is
But
the
just
big kahuna.
If you have on output 2, you want to use an FRFR, or you want to use like a normal PA monitor box, which has a lot of heights because single like pss, 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 right? And that's not good for guitar. You can just
I actually highly disagree with that. He said that earlier, that you roll off the top end. Complete bullshit. Don't listen to the man. And you know why?
It works
Then-
for bad FRFRs.
Okay, but you know why? I've seen Fluff, for example, EQ guitars and take all the top end off. The minute that I started to do the Chris Lord algae technique for electric guitar, my mixer started to sound good. So Chris Lord algae is, of course, a kick-ass mix engineer for modern rock and metal. And they asked him, because he has he's got all analog gear, right? So he has an SSL console in the studio. And he has a Waves plugin off his SSL console. And they asked him, Chris, when do you use that Waves plugin? Because you have the real console, right? And he said, well, when the guitars don't have enough top end, meaning when I crank up 15 dB plus on a high shelf at 5K, okay? When that 15 dB on the console isn't enough high shelf, then I asked my engineers in the other room to put my plugin on it and boost it more. So I read that and I was like, wait a second. Okay. And I took the Mark EQ, which has the air band, which is just a high shelf, put it to 5K, and I do this on all electric guitars. Fuck, the mix works.
But that's studio mixing.
Yeah.
And not live hearing yourself over an FRFR and expecting it to sound like a guitar cab. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's a totally different thing.
But the thing is, I've always said, oh, guitars is all in the mids and cut the highs. And I've seen people do it. It changed everything for me. I showed it to Glenn. Glenn started doing it. It's like, oh, fuck, mind blown. Like, there's a lot of information in the electric guitar, in the top end, and in the mix. You want to get that out. Okay, but of course, yeah, for an FRFR, what do I know? I got nothing.
Ideal thing for me actually is go to a 4x12 cabinet with a nice power amp, maybe the Fractal power station,
yeah.
right? Which is like a neutral tube power amp, right? So that doesn't color that much.
I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit maybe, but it's pretty neutral. So it makes it loud and a little warmer, and that into a 4x12 cabinet and go out before the cap block in the Fractal. That's the best sound for me live, right? So you would not be able to use different IRs because then the sound on the PA changes and your sound doesn't. I mean, you could do it, but that's the perfect thing for me. And FRFR is nice, but actually, if you're an older guitar player like me, then you're used to the amp. The people say amp in the room, what they mean is cabinet in the room.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter where the amp is. It's the cabinet, and that it is a guitar cabinet. You have this 3D
But
effect and
for
stuff.
a professional, let's say Petrucci style, whatever setup, you could probably run your real amp, have this go for effects back into your amp and into the actual cab, but then also grab that signal, which is coming from the preamp, run it into a virtual power amp, virtual cab, and mix in an IR with the real cab. I mean, with the routing in here, it's all possible.
Yeah.
With the routing that's possible with the ins and outs on this thing. You know, the world's your oyster, as they say.
You also have an 8-track audio interface built in into the thing, which only works in 48 kilohertz because the whole unit works in 48 kilohertz. So everybody that wants to do 44.1 is out of luck because it just doesn't work. It doesn't resample. It doesn't do that. If you use it with a UAD, they resample automatically.
Yeah.
But if you have an RME, there's only one RME that does it, which is the digital thing. That's like $2,000. So use 48 kilohertz. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. What can it do more?
That's the big question.
I mean, like the inputs we already discussed.
It doesn't have foot switches.
No, it doesn't have foot switches, but you can connect to the pedal inputs. No. Don't.
I just did something.
Don't.
I hit something.
Yeah,
Exit.
don't.
Exit. You can stomp on it. It's not recommended.
No, but you have the two pedal outs. You can plug any foot switch, and really any foot switch. You can choose if it's momentary or latching, and make preset up-down with it. That's what you can do. So if you have it in the studio and you don't want to like, and you just have like 3 presets, you can do scene up-down or preset up-down. You can configure that and just use a normal foot switch you got from any amp lying around and use that.
How much are these extra foot switches? The FC6 and the
actually have to look at that in the browser because I don't know. G66.
You're wearing the shirt
what's
and you
that?
don't know?
G66. I don't know the prices of the products, man. FC12, MK2. The MK2 has bigger buttons like this one. I'm in Germany. The big one, the 12, costs $849.
I mean, it's a tank and it's huge.
It's a tank. You can attach 4 expression pedals and 4 extra switches. So it's actually an FC16. Then
and the one that we got here, the FC6.
The one we got here, where do I find it? It's $599.
Okay, $600 for a foot switch. It's steep, but again, this is a tank. This is not a toy. And the great thing is you could actually chain another one through and another one through, and you could have this in different parts of the stage.
Yeah.
So if you're standing next to the drummer, you can still switch. Your roadie, guitar tech, can switch if you're not in the vicinity of one. You can have one in different parts of the stage, all connected with XLR cables, which I think every touring guy has.
Yes, and the XLR cable also gives the thing power. The first one, if you have a second one, you have to give that one power. There's a power jack on the end.
Okay.
It's not enough current for two of them.
It's 9 volt, so pretty standard.
Yeah, it's just standard, and it takes everything. It takes 9 volt, 12 volt. It doesn't
Now,
care.
of course, what you see on big tours, you see a rack with these. Usually there's wireless stuff in it. There might be some other routing if there's actually amps, but you see all this stuff twice. And the big question is, well, if it's so good, then why are they going to have a backup? Because people are not idiots. You have a backup always. It doesn't matter how good the gear is.
Everything can break.
Something can
no matter how
spill
good
on
it
it.
is.
It can be dropped. It can literally, as good as it is, something can break. And they have to have a flippy switch to go click, and then the show goes on because there's 10,000 people wanting to hear Dead or Alive. That's wrong because Phil X actually plays amps.
Yeah.
But
Metallica.
enter something.
Sandman.
Yeah.
They actually use only the device. They don't use any amp. They don't use anything. They don't use it as effects unit. They use it as it is. They have all their sounds there. Everyone has 2, and that's what they play. That's it.
Kind of sad though, don't you think?
But it sounds great.
Yeah, but
They could actually.
I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's Metallica. I want to see the cabs. I want to see the amps. Things need to get warm. I don't know.
They don't. They heard that thing, and they have their special sound they want to do.
Nobody's doubting the sound.
They're doing some like mix of diesel and some boogie amp, and it was very complicated. I heard Kirk Hammett talk about it, and it was so complicated to do that live that they said, "Fuck it, we're gonna use the Fractal stuff now."
If you're doing 2 different amps with 2 different cabs and blah blah blah, play Fractal. Period.
Yeah.
There are many reasons to play this. No doubt. I've been on the metal cruise, dragging cabs and amps and whatever on a cruise ship where you have 45-minute slots and you have a very, very sensitive time limit for setup and sound check and all that. I mean, there are many reasons why this as a convenience factor makes sense. And the feel, the sound, it's all there. Is it going to replace an amp in a room? I don't think it is. But that's not what it's made for.
No. And they're still, it's good that they are still amps, because if you don't have amps, what do they copy? I mean, we have to have the original to appreciate the...
We have to have a reference.
The copy that is made for... I mean, I played a tour with a Christmas show. They don't want me to put a 412 with a Marshall on there. I used Fractal. I used actually the first one, the standard, and then on the next year the Ultra, and on the year after that the 2.
The question is, I mean, the thing is, this is by far, with nothing coming under it for quite a while, the big kahuna of modelers. And I don't think anyone...
Not only modelers. Because Y, Satriani, and Petrucci
and effects units
use it as effects units. They have their Y has Synergy. I think Satriani still has Marshall, or did he switch to something?
He's a third power Dragon amps.
Yeah, Dragon amps. And Petrucci is always playing his boogie because he has his own boogie. It's called the JP2C. So if you have that, you use that, and it's the sound. And he uses actually 2 of them with. Goes stereo from the send of both of them into this and out of them in stereo again.
Even just as an effects unit, it offers a lot. But my point is, no one else has something on that level in terms of ins and outs and, let's say, professionality. I think the Quad Cortex is brilliant, but it's got 1 set of outputs. So you automatically, if you need more for a tour, you're limited with the Quad Cortex.
And I think a professional player would not really want to play that on the tour because it's not built like a tank at all.
A professional player could have 4 of them.
Yeah.
Easy. Okay.
Yeah. And then you're gonna.
Yeah, that wouldn't be an issue, but you just don't have the ins and outs like this has to interface it with the rigs that they play on big tours. If you're a hobby musician and you don't need all this stuff, the other gear gets closer in usability.
Right.
Yeah,
The
that's
thing
what I
is,
mean.
if you are a hobby musician that plays like really nice gigs and like weddings and Firmenfeiern, like corporate events where everything is like nice, right? Then it's good. But if you are a professional musician that plays on the Oktoberfest or something like this where people throw beer around and stuff, you want to use this in a rack behind where nobody gets and one cable into this built like a tank thing.
Yeah, that's my point when it comes to professionality in terms of ruggedness, but also the ins and outs, because this is something, the Helix rack probably has quite a bit in terms of...
It has quite a bit, yes, but not that level.
So I don't think right now anything can rival this when it comes to the interfaceability. Let's see if and when UA comes out with something. I don't think they're going to give it 4 sets of stereo outs. I don't think they would. If UA puts all their shit into a modeler, are they going to do a floor modeler? And in that case, this is still the king. And if they do a rack thing, are they going to give it all these ins and outs because they actually, they didn't give the aux MIDI.
And
they didn't give the aux XLR out. So they didn't give it one XLR out. So if they do a modeler, are they going to give it 4 sets of XLR or whatever? No, probably not.
And then can it do the foot switch stuff, which is very important for live use? Can it do 2 foot switches?
UA does overlook quite a bit of usability things. They do have the sounds. They have the ears and they got the sounds. If they come up with a modeler, it will be reduced in terms of how many amps and effects, but the ones in there will be phenomenal. But I think they're very much in the studio world. So what you just said, foot switch, ins and outs, isn't going to rival other units.
Yeah, I think the Fractal stuff is the stuff for playing live as a professional musician.
Agreed.
If it's an FM3 and FM9 or the Axefx, if you want to carry that stuff with the foot switch and stuff, I did. And then I switched to the FM9.
FM9 will do 98% of the jobs you need to do.
Yeah.
If you're on the big ass stage, and this has to be in the back where your amp tech is, so we're talking Metallica, U2, all that stuff.
Or make it like a big tribute show.
Yeah.
Even.
Then put this in the back, have a foot switch on the foot. So this is really the big kahuna. Or you're the hobby musician who just wants it. And you like it in your studio, you have a rack in front of you, you're never going anywhere else. Put that there because you got the money. This is what, $3,000?
I think I am open here.
Okay, you're right there. Let's give them the info.
It's $3,000. No, actually there are 2 versions. It's the Axefx MK2, which this is. It's $2,799. And then you have the Turbo, which has a bigger processor if you want to do even more effect stuff.
I think this is the turbo.
Which is, it has to say it here.
You sure?
Yeah. That's the Mark II. Turbo says Turbo here.
Why don't I have a turbo?
Because you don't need one. Nobody needs one actually.
Where's whoopsie! Where's it?
I don't have a turbo.
Where's the difference? Even more processing?
A little bit, like 15%, 20% more processing power.
It already has. You can.
This is ridiculous. I mean, you can run 2 plex delays, which you only need 1. You can run 2 amps. You can run 2 caps. You could run 4 caps with the IR player, and there are some things in there that are not in the FM9 still. There's a frequency analyzer you can put on the front, which looks nice and analyzes frequencies. And you have the TMA block, which is their kind
much ass.
of their kind of profiling, capturing. It's a match EQ. But if you like want to match like some specific amp you have, like a Fender that has a special sound, you can match the 2 and they sound exactly the same if you dial in an amp that's similar.
Now that is something we haven't mentioned in any of these Fractal videos. All the Fractal stuff is doing component modeling. So they're actually sitting there programming based on the individual components, right?
Yeah.
It is not profiling or capturing or IRing what, it's not what Tonex is doing. It's not what a lot of the stuff in the neural is doing or the nanocortex. It isn't capturing an amp, running it through an AI, and then playing that one setting. It's not capable of that. It's not that technology. The question is if they would ever want to go that route because it's in now, or just say, hey, it sounds great, we don't need that. So let's talk about some sounds.
I would say the second thing, I would not need that because all the amps I would ever want are in there. There was an argument like a year ago, I really wanted the ref in there. And ref sent him one and he put it in there. So he can do that stuff, it just have to wait a little longer.
A lot about this profiling stuff is people like to collect things.
Yes.
They don't need them. They like to download the next thing from the cloud and have a new toy to play with, which is really just...
But, like a lot of times when I was looking, I played all this shit and I have some of them at home. You go through the profiles, bam, bam, yeah, that's almost it, that's almost it. If I find an amp that's almost it, it's just a matter of like putting a few knobs. And on profiles, you have to go to the next profile because you can only like apply an EQ, maybe a little more gain.
The profiling is getting so ridiculous.
Don't call me with liquid profiling.
What?
That's just an EQ.
What?
Liquid profiling, that's Kempa does that. And they claim it's like modeling just with profiling. It's just an EQ with the curves from the original amps.
The thing with profiling is getting ridiculous because on the Tonex cloud there are profiles of neural software. So I'm totally fine with a Tone King Imperial profile if you mic the amp and you get a nicer. No, people ran it through the software. Do you know what happens when you copy something?
That's a
copy? Paper, and then you copy it again and you copy it again. It's not getting better. So,
Stille Post.
How dumb. People are profiling software.
That would be actually like a nice video to do. We profile a neural DSP plugin with the with the Cortex, with the Quad Cortex, and then we profile that sound on the Quad Cortex with Tonex, and then we do it like 50 times.
That's a video. No, in the Tonex, and then we profile that with the Nano-Cortex. We're not going to do any camper stuff. And at that point, it should already... That's interesting to see what happens.
After 10 or so.
Even after 3.
There's one guy that did that because people say that AD conversion is losing quality. And he re-recorded, he put out of the audio interface and re-recorded it. So analog digital conversion. You could hear a difference after, I think, 40. Before you could not hear shit.
It's all theory.
Okay, let's hear some sounds
here. Come on.
I have here a JM45 blues lead just open like by chance.
That's one preset right there. And within that preset, we've got scenes. And technically...
Do we have? Yes, we have all scenes.
They can give us 8 of them, right? Yep.
Yeah.
And on the foot switch right here, I can go hottest, cooler, trem. So with effects, without effects. So each preset isn't a sound. It's a whole bunch of sounds.
And you see also it's instant. Almost.
I have a Henry's guitar here, a little bit aged. This thing with locking tuners, roasted neck, we're all very impressed by it, and it's $699. That's ridiculous. Go to cooler. Looking for something cleanish.
No, that's a phaser.
Nuh-uh.
Oh, the vibe is under phaser.
Ah.
You have here phaser and you have FRS vibe.
We looked for that in the VP4 video.
Yeah, it's here.
That's decent. All major chords.
I can go to cool tram.
hot. There's still quite a bit of, well, it's a JTM. Ah, there we go.
That's what you expect from a JTM.
Can we have some more output here? Hopefully. Wait.
Do it here.
It's all good. There's a knob right there.
Yeah, I have a knob here too.
No, but I have a knob right there. What I realized when I played this for, tested them for a couple of weeks, is it's all easy to play. High gain leads are easy to play. Nothing is in your way. There's gating. Nothing is exploding. It's very easy to feel like a very good guitar player. However, it's all easy to play and nothing's in your way. And sometimes a real amp with a pedal does shit that you don't want it to do. And that stuff that makes it harder is also then maybe inspiring or brings stuff out of your playing or your music that you wouldn't foresee, and it takes you places. And I feel this is absolute perfection, which is what you want in a live situation, which is what you want when you're touring. You want replicatability, and you want it easy. But I played it, and I played especially those like high gain, beautiful leads, and I felt like, oh my God, am I a good guitar player? And I went back to an actual amp, and it made it quite a bit harder to get that feeling. Both have their pros and cons.
And that's the reason some people prefer now their Fractals and don't go back to their tube amps, because they want that feeling that you seemingly don't like that much.
Well, it's perfection. It's absolute perfection.
Maybe there's a secret room somewhere here where you get here.
But it feels like it's not all the way there where the real gear is, because of that perfection, because real gear isn't perfect. Analog gear isn't perfect. But again, someone that plays this and needs this also needs that perfection. Very, very simple. If I have this in the studio, but I've got a wall of amps and an amp heat switcher and a way to record it easily, am I going to turn this on or the amps? If the convenience factor is out the way.
Yeah, but it's a special situation in your studio, you have to say.
Yeah, but if the convenience factor is out the way, are you going to play... I ask myself this. Am I going to play this or the real amp? And I find that I use modelers as much as the amps for different reasons. Could I set up two amps to get a stereo setup? Yeah. But when I do a stereo pedal, I'd rather go into a modeler with a stereo input for convenience. But you know what? Sound also good. So again, different strokes for different folks, as they say.
Okay, we have a dirty Shirley here.
I got one of those.
That's one. That's two. That's too much stranger.
I was just going to say, they like overloading things a bit with effects.
A bit. There's also an AC/DC sound which has reverb on it, and I will bitch about that because that doesn't know.
Yeah.
Actually, if you put up that sound, I think AC, is it called? No. Oh, you have to check this one out. This the AC20. And they have the different modes here. With a little shimmer.
Little bit over the top again.
Just too dry.
Not bad.
Nice. Just one simple thing. If you see like all the outputs, all the inputs, how do you get them to work and blah, blah, blah and stuff. So you can do extreme shit. You can just put an output anywhere on the grid. Like, for example, I use QuickBird.
You do that, I turn the heater off because we're dying in here.
Yeah. I put out 2 here, and I could do a different chain from here to there. Connect that, and I could do a different cap here, or just an IR player, right? And go to out 2. I could actually give out 3 here, and send the DDI signal there.
Oh, that is really easy.
And can route that. That's really easy on the device.
Could you do that here? I mean, of course.
You could do that here, but pretty it would, easy as well.
It would be. Wait, how do you get back? No, how do you get? Do you see the whole thing?
It's a zoom and it's the knob here. Yeah.
But it would be more difficult because you can't just easily pull with the mouse.
Yeah, you can. Let's do an input that goes into out 1, right? Okay. Let's do an input. Input 1. Input 2. Input 1 is also already in use. And then you hit enter. And then you go there and hit enter.
Okay, that's fairly easy.
So now in2 is also connected to out 1. So I could hear, for example, if I put like a MP3 player into in2, I could hear it on the output.
Yeah, that's pretty massively cool. And obviously everyone's going to comment on these videos. Yeah, but my Helix does this too. Or my whatever does this too. Yeah, many things do many things. They all look at each other and influence each other, learn from each other. Why wouldn't they? I'm really hoping that Fractal is looking at Neural at least and saying, well, you know what, everyone likes touchscreens, let's do that. But that's not a bad thing. I'm pretty sure nobody at Line 6 ever thought of profiling and that stuff. And if the new Helix that will hit the market at some point doesn't include profiling or cloning or whatever they're calling it, then they're not going with the times.
Yeah, I would also say I don't really think that this needs profiling.
Agreed.
But what would be the harm in including a NAM player? You know, the NAM format, the open source stuff, it's probably not that hard to put in there. In the next generation, probably hard to put in there. But the next generation, just do a NAM player and let people just use their NAM profiles if they like. And if they don't like, use the modeling. And also, next version, I was not I'm an opponent, actually, was an opponent of touchscreen because touchscreens can be done very badly. And I just used some stuff that they were done very good at. And I think they should revamp the whole user interface and use a touchscreen.
It's just
even
so much
on the devices. And also what I really wish, put in the web server, make a wireless in there, and let the editor access over any device. iPhone, iPad.
Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
With a web interface, not apps. So you don't have to update apps. You just update the firmware and everything is updated.
Yeah.
And then you can access it from everywhere. That's something I would say this thing needs in the next generation, which maybe, I don't know, 2 years away.
But we have a whole bunch of players on the market now. We got Line 6, we got Neural, we got Headrush, we got IK Multimedia. And that competition drives innovation. Because they're looking at each other and someone says, oh, that's kind of cool, but we're going to make that our thing and we're going to turn it into something better. And with the ingenuity that they have at Fractal, with thinking of every single thing and most certainly thinking of the needs of the player, up to the point where you give it so many features that it's very confusing to many people, but you can do anything you imagine with these boxes. And that means when they tackle a technology that they might not have thought of, but they now want to implement, they're going to do it to perfection.
Yeah. And my opinion is, it would be nice to have a touchscreen. It would be nice to have a NAM player. But for a professional musician, this does everything you need. Because a professional musician, just for example, Celine from the Ibanez endorser, she's doing the show, Michael Jackson show in Hamburg. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do such a show, you set the sounds up, and then it stays that for a year. You don't need the touchscreen then. And you don't need it to dial in because you have the knobs and you have the editor. Mm. When you dial in such massive sounds for a massive production, you use a laptop. And I would not want to bend over a thing and use a touchscreen. That's for quick adjustments.
Agreed.
And also on floor units, touchscreen, you have to set it on the table, but it's a foot unit. So I would always use an editor. That's maybe not you. You put it on your desk. I won't put it on the desk. I don't want to. I want an editor and a touchscreen.
My point is, you're in the practice room or at the rehearsal or at the sound check, and being able to make a quick adjustment to something because you realize, oh, wait a second, with this system, reverb mix is way too high. you know, or I need a different IR. You need to be able to do these adjustments quickly.
Yeah.
This is confusing. A touchscreen will be quicker.
Yeah. I mean, reverb.
Yeah, but a touchscreen will be quicker.
Yeah, it will be quicker. Depends on the touchscreen interface. Okay, we have a lot of stuff in there, so yeah, that was reverb, and I just passed it.
Yeah. So, thing is,
but I could do that. And,
it's just look. We all carry touchscreens in our pockets now. It makes no sense why it wouldn't be on the professional gear that we use.
But also, we all carry touchscreens in our pocket now. Why not just build in an interface where I can quickly connect and use that touchscreen?
Probably not the worst idea.
Yeah. That's I said web editor.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
You put up a VLAN on your Wi-Fi on your phone, and you say connect. Put in the password. Okay, yeah. Put in the password with a touchscreen. Fuck it. I don't want to put in a password with that.
Nope. Or names.
Or names, no. That's what I never did.
That's the thing. But it is, at the moment, the most professional unit. We could play a million sounds, but you've heard this in many, many places. We were just trying to explain why it's being used by the pros, why it's different than the others. We cannot go through everything that it does. We didn't go through anything that it does. It's just not possible. But there are courses from Bernd in German teaching you everything about this.
Yeah.
There is direct support in Europe from Knut, who you can call, and in America probably as well.
I don't know about that, but probably. And you have in America, you have Cooper Carter, who is a nice guy, and he also makes nice videos where he visits artists that play Fractal, and they show their sounds. He just did one which is awesome for Maroon 5. The guitar player also plays Fractal, and he has a lot of great sounds. And he used to do all the amps. They had like 4 amps on tour, and he was sick of it. And he now plays Fractal, and he shows the sounds, and they're awesome. And he does that for many players. And he has a course as well for all the units, for FM3, FM9, and Axefx. They're different courses. Mine is all in one. And I will be doing a VP4 course, which is a small unit as well, which will be finished in maybe end of January and beginning of February. And he does the courses in English. I do my courses in German. So
there's a lot of help which you might need when you get started with this, but it's absolutely phenomenal gear.
Manuel is great, by the way.
Thank you so much to G66 for sending this stuff over. Thanks to Fractal for being awesome. Thanks to Bernd for spending the whole day with me and nerding out about digital gear. I'll put links to the place where you can buy the stuff below. That will help you to buy the stuff. And we'll put what at the end?
Animals.
Animals, as always. Bye, guys.
I'm not made of solid gold, and my shoes, they are worn by the time they are way too old. I've not been touched in many years, have a lost building up like of trust has kept me here. Lonely days keep me